are the most important cooldown of the game. What do I mean by this? Now, ability in Overwatch is ability in Overwatch is balanced against every other one, and ultimates are the same. However, they're balanced to a higher standard, which means that they do more damage and they're meant to be more kind of useful overall. Now, abilities are meant to kind of fit into the playstyle of the ultimate, and the ultimate's meant to fit into the playstyle of the hero. It's a tiered system. So the hero is everything, and the abilities support the ultimate, which support the hero. Ultimates can be used to win the game or lose it. Now, what do I mean by that? A bad ult can very easily lose you a game. If you blade on point before everyone's ready, and you don't have any other ultimates to cap the point with, then you lose the game. But if you coordinate the ults correctly, if you get a lot of kills or a lot of healing, or you get the best trance of your life, you know, it's a lot. It's very helpful. So ultimates are not like other cooldowns. All of this for right now is basically just going to be background. So ultimates are not like other cooldowns. You have to deal damage or use abilities in order to get them. There's a lot of effective ways to do it. There's a lot of ineffective ways to do it, and we'll talk about that later. So in Overwatch, it's a team game, and a lot of the ultimates are meant to be stacked and comboed together, but they're not meant to be overused, and we'll talk about that later. Okay, so the first real thing we're going to be talking about today is ult comboing. Now, effectively comboing ults is an essential part of playing the game competitively. Some ults have really good synergy together, such as Dragon Strike and Graviton Surge. They're just fundamentally meant to go together. Dragon Strike denies a large area of space and can do a lot of damage to people standing within it, and Graviton Surge brings people together. And the use of them in conjunction can kill an entire team in a matter of seconds. Even though they nerfed it a little bit, Trance is still not great at protecting it, because it still does just a lot of damage. So pretty much anything with Grav works well. You can throw almost any ult into Grav and it'll work well. You shouldn't. There's some ults that you shouldn't stack together, and I'll talk about that in a little while. But pretty much anything with Graviton Surge is just great. But it's not just kind of a set thing, you know. I mean, of course there are set synergies, but you can also it also has to do with your team's playstyle. If you put down Bongos, which is Orisa's ultimate, and Dragon Blade, which is Genji's, it's okay if you have an aggressively placed Orisa, because the Bongos will still be protected by the Orisa, and your Genji will still get the kind of full output of them. It all just kind of comes down to what you want to do with an ult. D.Va Bomb can be used to make space, but even if it doesn't kill as intended. If you're shooting at someone and you ult them and you intend to kill them and it doesn't kill them, is that necessarily a bad ult if it forces them out of position? You know, it's just something you have to decide whether or not it's worth it for you to ult there. So take a minute or two and just watch part of this video and look at the ults being used. How are they being comboed specifically? And we'll come back in 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so you guys gonna mute for a few minutes. Just tell me what you saw in the video. What are some things that you saw comboed, stuff like that, and what do you think that these people can improve on?
In some of the fight, people use a lot of ults, like a lot of them.
Yeah. All right. That's a really good thing to point out. We're gonna be getting to that in a second. Anything else from anyone?
It just seems like they're not really coordinating their ult usage at all. Because while they might win that fight, it's gonna put them down on the ult economy later
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, that is true. This is solo queue though, so or
There seems to be
ladder.
Sorry?
Yeah. No. Go ahead. Sorry.
And it seems to be mostly either like only one ult that like randomly gets people or like every ult.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else from anyone?
People try to kind of like get the play of the game instead of like trying to win the fight by getting like 3 or 4 people in out, but they got everyone in out just so that they could get the play of the game. That's it.
Okay, that's a very fair assessment, and I think that is what happens a lot of time, especially in solo queue or ranked. If you're trying to, win the game, you're not necessarily thinking about that. If you're like, oh, I'm gonna get a huge ultimate here, are you thinking, how can my team capitalize on this going forward, or are you thinking, hey, this is gonna be a great highlight to show my friends?
So, do you guys have any like positive things that you think that they did well that you saw in that video?
Okay, is this a little bit better?
Yeah, that's good.
What were you gonna say, Ken?
I was just saying if anyone like saw any things that they did well in that video, like a good combination of ults.
Not just bad.
Right.
Definitely, just anything you saw.
Maybe on the first Reinhardt ult, they didn't really use anything else to follow up, so they probably got a lot of ult charge for the team.
They did use
Yeah.
EMP at the start of that fight, I noticed.
Oh, okay.
But-
The
But that was a
Farah
very
barrage
good combo.
Yeah.
with the bubble on Farah. That was awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So, as you can tell, there's a lot of really good ways to stack ults, a lot of really bad ways too. I think it was something that Placebo said. I want to say that stacking ults. They were stacking ults that weren't very good, and that's the next thing we're going to talk about. So, ult stacking. Ult stacking is the evil witch version of combos. And I know that combos are also technically stacking ults. But when I say ult stacking, I'm specifically talking about like the bad way. If you use too many, or you don't use enough. So when you use too many ults, you kill the team momentum. If your team strat is focused around snowballing a graviton or snowballing through a EMP, it can be really hard to recover from that if you waste it on something trivial. It's all. Especially when the ults are overlapping or someone have the same job. So say that you're using a Reinhardt and you slam, and your Zarya also grabs. It's ineffective because they're both just stunning the opponents and bringing them together, incapacitating them. And if you already are doing that with one ult, there's not much of a reason to do it with two. Now I understand if you're slamming just to get more damage, but it's a lot more effective to just kind of swing in rather than wasting your ult, which can be used to win another fight, as the first clip on this video showed. So using too many ults in general is a folly that's plagues a lot of teams, not just solo queue ones. It's something that every team needs to be working on. Constantly, because it's really easy to say, hey, there's a grab over there, why don't we all just press Q, right? Offensive beats are fine, but if you offensively beat and offensively trans and then push in and you don't have any more support ults, it's one of the worst things in the world, because you're destroying your team's ult economy, which is something I'll talk about in a few minutes. Using too many is bad. Using too many ults is bad, but not using enough is worse. If you commit to a fight, say you use trance and slam, but you don't use enough to actually kill the whole team, and they win the fight, you're just wasting your ults because those are now ults that can't be used in a winning fight. It's it's terrible to think about, especially because your team had assumed that you were going to win that fight, and so they committed to it. And talking about dry fights versus all-ins, something we'll be getting to in a few minutes. Committing ults is one of the most important ways to win or lose a team fight, because if you're both pressing Q, if you if you're both pressing Q, then it somewhat evens out. But if one team presses too many Qs, then the next time that they fight, the other team will have more. So something that's been brought to my attention is that not everyone seems to know what different types of ults there are. So defensive support ults, like Zen Lucio, are ones that are meant to stabilize your team. Utility ults like Zarya or Orion are meant to incapacitate the kind of enemies, and damage like Soldier or Pharah are meant to kill the rest of the team. And I know I just basically copied what Steven wrote, but it is true. There are other types. Something like Mei would be utility, but something like Brig is kind of an exception because you would think her ult's a defensive ult, but it's more of a damage ult because while she is giving her team armor, it's upping your offensive capacity more than your defensive. So team fights. Team fights are pitched battles over the payload, point, or somewhere in between that decide the victor of the game. These can take place at any time, pretty much, and they're mostly used as a sort of who's winning, rather than staggering yourself on the point and trying to get a single kill. Team fights are a great way of kind of fighting as a whole team. And most of what I'm going to be talking about is either upper ranked or scrims. So obviously, if you're in bronze, you're probably not going to be having actual team fights. You're going to be having more of like, trickling in, and that's fine. But then you should be focusing on trying to make more team fights. So if this doesn't necessarily apply to you, it still will at some point. So whoever wins more team fights wins the game. And what's the best way to win team fights? Pressing Q. Ultimates are the best way to kind of change the tide of a team fight. If you're down a couple players and then you all press Q, you will most likely win, especially if you have more ults than the other team. Many of the big plays in Overwatch League or contenders happen in team fights. Identifying and planning for team fights is one of the most important parts of shot calling for Overwatch, or just playing in general. Deciding something like a dry push versus a all-in push is very important, especially when you're talking about like how you're going to be going about this, so people aren't just randomly pressing Q during the middle of a fight that you had decided beforehand is lost. If you get, especially if your team had gotten like a couple picks or a couple of your team had died, it's really good to decide beforehand rather than trying to clean everyone up with an ult or trying to defend yourselves by pressing Q. Winning team fights when your ult isn't bound to Q. What's your ult bound to? Why? Most of the team fights will be covered next week with the topic team comps and rollouts. Winning a team fight effectively needs teamwork and be carried out not just by ultimates, but by regular cooldowns. But as I said, most of the time you win a fight by doing ultimates. So ult economy. Ult economy is very similar to economy in other games like CS:GO or any RTS. So I'm gonna I'm gonna be basically comparing it to CS:GO. And if you don't know CS:GO, then oh well. So most of CS:GO is building up money so you can buy better guns. The first round of every game, you don't have any money, right? You can only buy basic things, and this is the same with ults. You have to charge them up, get money, and be able to use them later down the line. When playing, throwing your ult as soon as you get it is bad for everyone, not just yourself, because it is a team game. So it's not your personal economy; it's a team economy, the team ult economy. Ults, as stated before, work best in conjunction with others, and so the best way to win team fights is to keep your ult economy strong. Um, Also, keep in mind heroes passively gain charge at different rates. So a Genji will most likely get a blade before Ana. And this is also has to do with your playstyle and the effectiveness of a certain hero within whatever comp you're playing. So if a Mercy happens to be doing more healing than an Ana, it's most likely she's going to get her ult soon or first. So your ult economy is based on how well you're playing, not just the time that passes, which is just like CS:GO. So ult tracking. Ult tracking is a huge part of the game. It basically determines who on the other team has ults and when they're going to use them. If you can effectively track ults, it's very easy to win games because you know when they're going to do it and how to counter them. If the enemy's going to grab and you're playing D.Va, you know when to eat it. Or if the enemy's Ryan is going to smash, then you know how to put up your shield and like stand in front of him. A good way to start doing this is to track the mirror of you on the other team or the counter of you on the other team and expand to the full team. So what would be a counter? So if you're playing Genji, you would want to keep track of either the enemy Genji's ult or the enemy Winston ult. Oh yeah, tracking ults. It's really overwhelming at first. I can tell you from first-hand experience. Trying to learn who on the enemy team has their ult is just terrible. So you got to take it one at a time, and you got to understand like who is doing the best, who's performing, who's not. And yeah, and this works a lot with your team. So you can each keep track of one if you're organized enough, or even just generally knowing when or when not people have ults is very good. So here's specific stuff. So each hero has an individual tech to their ult and how they play it. So if you're playing like Junkrat and you run into a wall, the enemy team can't hear you as loud. It's just specific tricks that each hero has, and you'll learn after playing them for a while. Or YouTube. YouTube also works. Ult farming is also different for each hero and playstyle. Junkrat works best on spamming himself against higher health targets, whereas someone like Widowmaker is a lot better at picking off squishies. And much of it comes down to your specific preferences. Of course, you can shoot Widow at tanks. I mean, you'll do a lot of damage, but it's less effective than just shooting at the squishies, especially if you can't hit them, just like me, because I'm bad at the game. Me telling you to play here in a specific way won't help you. It's up to you to kind of determine the best way for you to play the hero or to use the ult. Keeps leaving, whatever. And it's just as important to learn how to use your hero's ult as it is to counter the enemies. Okay, so that took a lot less time than I thought it would. And so in the spirit of that, here's another video. And it's Contenders Trials. And I want you to look at these ults. I don't know the specific timestamps. Feeding is my playstyle. Same. I don't know the specific timestamps, but if you can find them and post them, that'd be great. So watch the video and then compare it to the other video that we have. And after we'll go through questions, and if we don't have anything else, I'll assign you guys your homework. And you don't have to listen to comms or anything like that. That'll be a different day. Oh, rest of no. Just look for the ults when they're using them, or like right before. See how they set up and stuff like that. Oh, the positioning will be next week's topic. Very well, like team comps and rollouts and stuff like that. You're looking for like ults, and team fights and how they used both. Yeah, and by they I just mean everyone, not a specific team. There's also something I didn't talk about. Shoot. Whatever, I'll do it now. Okay. While you guys are watching the video, just kind of listen to me in your ear. Counter ulting. Now, counter ulting is the use of your ults after the enemy team uses their ult. So, counter grabbing, counter EMPing. There's a lot of really good examples of counter ulting. And the way you do this is to swing the fight back in your favor. A really good example is so there was a point in a Contenders game where it was Runaway playing, and they got all shattered, yeah, but then their Lucio beat and they counter shattered and counter grabbed and they won the fight and the map because they were able to sort of do that. I'll post in announcements later if I could find it somewhere. But it's something that you can do. I personally don't like doing it because I feel like it's a waste if you've already lost the fight. But something counter ulting isn't necessarily support ulting. Counter ulting would be more of a counter grab or counter shatter, which is more of an offensive ultimate, which is used to kind of attack the other team after they attacked you. And I after you guys finish just watching this video and stuff, I'm gonna open up for questions in about 2 minutes. So if you have any questions about like specifically counter ulting, I can do that. Shatter out of grab is a classic example. Yeah, exactly, Rastiv. I'm gonna open it up for questions. So if anyone has a question, just say it.
So I have this specific question on goats. Like, how do you
Yes.
alt track in goats? There's so much shit going on. Like the fights are over like
Yes.
so fast. And, like
Yeah.
there's no
Okay.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
So if you're ult tracking in goats, normally what you'd want is one of your flex supports to be doing it.
Mm,
If you're playing in a team setting, but if you're playing ranked, a really good way of doing it is basically just like tracking your counter, of course, or whoever playing. Like if you're playing Ryan, whoever else is playing Ryan on their team, and working out from there. It's the same as anything else. You just gotta understand that they're gonna be getting ults a lot quicker than you think, because everyone does a lot of like healing and damage and stuff like that. So a lot of it is just kind of understanding what's happening. But I also think that it's very difficult. So if you can't do it for a while, that's fine. But if you're playing in scrims and stuff like that, you should have a designated person to do it. It doesn't necessarily have to be you. Okay. Any other questions? I hope I answered that. Unless you have
yeah,
a
yeah,
follow up
yeah.
question. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, there's a follow-up question to that too. Like,
Sure.
supposedly if the enemy team has like 5 ults and you have like 4 ults, so is it worth it to ult first so that they won't get any kind of advantage?
First ult advantage is a finicky thing
Mm,
because if you ult first in Transcendence, who wins? If you both ult in Transcendence but you ult a second earlier, who wins? They do because your ult finishes first. It's a crazy thing, and I feel like first ult advantage is more of a fight by fight basis. If you
So
think that, yeah, go ahead.
kind of like you can kind of bait it, right? Like if you do Grav and Diva Bomb into a trance, it's gonna kill them, but it's kind of risky. Like you
Yeah,
have to time it perfectly, or else you're gonna get fucked.
yeah, exactly.
Mm,
And grabbing first doesn't necessarily mean they can't just grab you right back.
mm.
There's a lot of really good examples in Contenders. I wish I had more like clips, but I didn't. It's not a good example then, is it, Cam? It's a bad example. Fucker. No. Yeah. Okay, I get it, dude. Okay. Um, I hope that answers your question,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mostly, though.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. If you hear like a game and you're like Zen and you have trends up, should you just like instinctively trends or should you like try to kill him first?
No. Unless you're actually Jonak, in which case, welcome to my server, Jonak. I love you. Yeah, unless you're actually like Jonak, instinctively kind of ulting is fine. Because if he is attacking your team, then you'll have already tranced, you know? If you do have like really good reflexes or you trust yourself that much, you can try to kill him. but he'll probably just kill you and then your team's dead.
Yeah. All right.
And if
Whether you trance should depend on the state of the fight. Yes. So if you're trancing early in a fight, before you've lost anyone, then it's an aggressive trance. And these are okay if you can get picks during the time, because if not, it's not worth it. If you're already down a pick or two, then you probably shouldn't trance, because you're probably not going to win, especially on offense. On defense, it's a little bit like different. Yeah. But if the overall costs you the point, then it's not really worth. Okay, any other questions? No? No other questions? Okay, cool. If there are no other questions, then I guess I'll just finish up today's class early. Everyone could just stay here and talk to the mods and stuff like that, talk to each other. I'll post all my notes in the class. I'll make a new channel. So I'll put. Oh, your homework is to get to level 10 on the server. And I know that's a bit of a ways, but it is a week. And your grade will be determined on what rank you get. So, like, if you get to rank 7, then you'll get a 70%. And the best, like, the higher, the better, like, grade you get in the class, the more stuff you'll be able to do. For some, like, high-ranking people, I might do specific pugs or, like, extra stuff, giveaways, maybe streams and stuff. And that'll be it. Okay. If nobody else has any questions, then that'll be all. Thank you guys for listening.